Hey everyone. So I am in the process of refinishing my coffee table, and I've had a couple people ask me how I do the thing with the little anchors because it looks like it's burned in like wood burning, but it's not. It's actually way easier than that. And so I figured enough people seemed interested in it that I thought I'd show you how I do it. So I actually just refinished this with. I've been doing a lot of stuff with Danish oil, and I find that that actually sort of works better because it soaks in and is a little bit harder of a finish. So when I do the next layer of stain on top of it, it doesn't bleed as much. But the other stuff that's in the room and the whole rest of the coffee table is already done in this Puritan pine, so I'm kind of stuck. I didn't want it to be the one different thing in the living room, so I'm going to be doing it with this. So I already did a coat of Puritan pine on the top of the coffee table, and I found after a lot of experimentation that it works better to do the base stain first, because otherwise the stencil will bleed like crazy. So I did that already, and then I have a tiny can of red mahogany stain. Same brand, same type of stain and everything. You don't want to get too creative with it, although I have been doing it on top of Danish oil and that works great. So first thing I do is stir it up like you would with any stain, and then wipe off your little stick, and then use your rag. And then the most important part of this, I've already centered the stencil, like I measured it out like where I want to have it so that it's exactly in the middle, because otherwise it'll bother you for the rest of your life that it's not right where you want it. So you saturate your rag, and then the important part is you want to like blot it, because you don't want it to be too wet, because then it'll just bleed everywhere and look sloppy. And then you make sure that you hold this real still. And I used to tape this down, but I found that that made it harder. And then you just kind of gently blot, making sure that you don't move the stencil or your left hand that you're using to hold it in place, or anything until you're totally done, because then that will make it look sloppy. And again, I used to tape it down so that it was nice and secure, but then I found I took it for granted a little bit too much, and then was accidentally moving it while I was blotting, and it just works better like this. But there's definitely a learning curve to this. So if you decide that you want to try this, practice on something that you didn't spend a lot of time on first. Otherwise you'll cry. So you blot it until, and then this particular stencil has a couple small spaces, which are like where I'll show you in a minute, like where the lines for the line on the anchor comes, like those are sort of small things, and those, if you do too much stain, it'll bleed into those blank spaces, and then that looks a little bit sloppy. So you just want to be careful that, especially with those types of things. So then I think I've got all of it, and if there's any spots that look like the stain is just too thick, you want to take the dry side of the rag and just gently blot that. And be careful, like you don't want to ever wipe anything, because that's how you get stain into those blank spaces, and make the whole thing look sloppy. You're blotting, you're not wiping. And pay attention to the edge of the stencil too, because if you go off the side of it, you'll have your dark stain in the spot that you don't want it. So then you make sure that your hands don't have any of this on it. I'm wiping it on my pants. And then you peel up your stencil, and ooh, that looks good. And you put it off to the side, not somewhere else on your project. And here, let's take a look. Doesn't that look nice? I think it looks nice. And there's a couple spots. So see what I was talking about before, where the blank spaces where there's kind of fine detail. See, it's bleeding just a little bit. If you put too much stain down, that a little bit of bleed goes from looking a little bit rustic to looking like, oh my God, what'd you do? And there's a couple spots where, see where this is a little bit thick right here, and just a little bit extra saturated. I probably should have blotted that a little bit more dry before I peeled the stencil up, but it's too late now. So the one thing that you could try is if you're thinking ahead and planning ahead and you have like Q-tips or something with you, this is the perfect application for that. I have another rag that I used earlier with some mineral spirits, so let's see. I'm just going to kind of blot that a little bit. Okay, better than it was. Cool, now you know how to do it. Have fun.